let's talk about this terror arrest in Toronto. We've got a clip here, and then we'll move on to what we know, what we don't know, and what the heck is going on here. RCMP announced details on 2 men arrested on terrorism charges. Ahmad Fuad Mustafa El-Didi, 62, and Mustafa El-Didi, 26, are facing 9 charges, including conspiracy to commit murder on behalf of ISIS. Police say the men had an axe and a machete as weapons. Well, how did they get here? Where are they from? Why are they in this country? Let's go to the clip first, please.
A terrorist attack that was prevented by the RCMP Federal Policing's Greater Toronto Area Integrated National Security Enforcement Team, who we'll call INSET. The GTA INSET is made up of the representatives, many of whom you see before you today. The RCMP, Toronto Police, CBSA, the Ontario Provincial Police, York Regional Police, Peel Regional Police Service, and the Durham Regional Police, with assistance that we get from the Ministry of the Attorney General of Canada and of Ontario and the Public Prosecution Service of Canada. INSET investigates threats to national security, including criminal extremism and terrorism. These investigations carried out by INSET look into the most serious threats to Canada's safety and security. On July 28, 2024, GTA INSET arrested a father and son at a hotel in Richmond Hill who were in the advanced stages of planning a serious, violent attack in Toronto. We became aware of this in early July. A publication ban is currently in place in order to protect the integrity of the complex investigation. However, I will speak to the details that I can provide at this time. With the consent of the Attorney General of Canada, and where appropriate, the Attorney General of Ontario, 2 individuals stand charged with a number of criminal code terrorism offences. Ahmed El-Didi, age 62, and Mustafa El-Didi, age 26, face charges for their alleged terrorist activities, including participation in the activities of a terrorist group, ISIS or Daesh, contrary to Section 8318 of the Criminal Code. Facilitating a terrorist activity, contrary to Section 8319 of the Criminal Code. Conspiracy to commit murder, contrary to Section 465 of the Criminal Code, for a terrorist purpose. 1 count each of possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose, contrary to Section 88 of the Criminal Code, again, for a terrorist purpose, those weapons being an axe and a machete. In addition, Ahmed El-Didi faces 1 additional charge for aggravated assault, contrary to Section 268 of the Criminal Code. I want to emphasize there is no evidence to suggest that there is any remaining risk to the public. I would also like to say that I'm very proud of the impressive team effort that went into this investigation. The success would not have been possible without the work done by all involved civilian and sworn members and a collective effort from our partner agencies that I've mentioned earlier and that are here before you. I would also like to thank the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSIS. They also assisted with this investigation, as always, and I want to thank them for their assistance.
Well, Sheila, the first thing I want to say is I want to applaud the RCMP and York Regional Police for, arresting a father and son ISIS tag team before they carried out their carnage, as opposed to, arresting a journalist asking Fraulein Freeland insensitive questions. So it's nice to see them ratchet up law enforcement against potential real criminals, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's good to see them get after the bad guys, as cops should be doing, as cops mostly do. However, when you're around, you're a bit of a heat score, David Menzies. I thought for sure, by the way, we were going to get arrested at the nudist colony. I thought, that's great. There are going to be naked people waving at me as I'm in the back of a cop car. I just worry that anytime I send somebody out to work with David Menzies, they're going to get arrested. But the police actually did good work here. It sounds like. However, these people were ISIS supporters in plain view of everybody for a very long time. And that's why I'm wondering how the heck they got into Canada and why the heck they were still here to be brandishing machetes or axes in the name of ISIS or whatever they plan to do. Because we've got a tweet here. Sources told Global News the father appeared in a 2015 ISIS propaganda video in which he is allegedly shown dismembering a prisoner with a sword. The video obtained by Global News that appears to match the one that resulted in the aggravated assault charge shows a prisoner wearing an orange jumpsuit suspended from a pole in the desert. Just aggravated assault? Now that charge, one of the charges that the dad got stems from an incident outside of the country. So he was arrested on aggravated assault charges for something he did outside of the country. And it sounds like it appears to be dismembering a prisoner in the desert. That's what he got aggravated assault charges for?
It is astonishing, Sheila. And I mean, look at their weapons that were confiscated. An axe and a machete. What kind of degenerate goes on a killing spree with, I guess, weapons from medieval times, if you will, hacking up presumably innocent people with machetes and axes? I mean, it is just despicable. And I'm sorry to be a contrarian here, but I am more concerned than ever with the Justin Trudeau Liberals' plan to bring in thousands of Gazans, right?
Yes.
These are people that we know the vast majority support Hamas, support the destruction of the Jewish state, support the killing of Jews. Really, what could possibly go wrong? I think in this case, maybe law enforcement got lucky, or maybe it was really good police work. Maybe, as always, it's a combination of the two. But we are throwing gasoline on the fire by bringing in these Gazans. I think, I'm hoping for the best, expecting the worst. But again, if anyone is pro-Gazan coming into Canada, please explain the rationale for that, given what we've seen these past 8 months on the streets of our Dominion, with people openly chanting for genocide and sometimes trying to do a little freelance genocide on the side.
Yeah, especially when we know that the support for Hamas actually went up post October 7th terror attack on Israelis, post kidnapping and hostages of Israelis. Support for Hamas went up amongst Palestinians. And now, so what do we know? Best case scenario, 2/3, worst case scenarios, above 3/4 of Palestinians are showing support for Hamas and the terror attacks. So if we take in 5,000, what's the potential there? 3,000, 4,000 of them potentially supporting Hamas. And the story about this dad and son, it's even worse than we think. A man in a black robe whose face is visible, so the 62-year-old, hacks at a prisoner's limbs with a sword as the man is suspended from a pole in the desert wearing an orange jumpsuit. I know from before I go on, I know from my own access to information investigations into the vetting of Syrian refugees that 2 fighting age people could come to a Canadian consulate in wherever you land, Egypt, Syria, wherever, and say, like, we're a family unit. We could be brothers, we could be partners. Who are we to determine what a family is? But 2 fighting age brothers could go to a consulate in wherever you land in the Middle East and say, we're Syrian refugees, we're a family unit, take us. And it happened all the time.
And, Sheila, I think this is another piece of evidence, if you will, that shows that official multiculturalism is a failed experiment. It used to be the unspoken deal was this: you can come into the country, but all your hatreds, all your grudges that stem from the home country, you leave that behind, and we're not necessarily a melting pot. When it's World Cup of Soccer, you can fly your, country's flag on your car. But you're going to blend in. You're going to obey Canadian laws. You're not going to cause trouble. You're not going to be a shite disturber. And what do we have now? We have, like I said, every weekend in so many cities in our country and in the West, chants for genocide. And when you try to get out of the city, well, then you run into situations like Wasaga Beach, where people are defecating on the beach and burying their dirty diapers there because, well, you know what? That's how we kind of do it back home. I'm sorry. It is a failed experiment, Sheila. And what do I see happening with the Justin Trudeau Liberals doubling down on this by bringing these Gazans over? You know what I'd love to do? I'd love to track who these people are. And the moment they get here, how soon is it going to be before they go to one of these pro-Hamas rallies in downtown Toronto or downtown wherever? I bet you right off the hop, Sheila.
Right. Supporting a banned terrorist organization is illegal in this country. So out you go. Well, that's why we have our campaign, deporthamas.com. If you support Hamas and you're not a Canadian citizen, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Okay, get out. Before we move on to exactly the topic that you're talking about, anti-Semitism and the rising tide of anti-Semitism, while the Liberals maintain their focus on Islamophobia, everything else be damned. Let's just go to a last little Q&A from the RCMP who announced their arrest. They talk about just how close these two were to carrying out their attack. Now, they don't say specifically what the attack is. I would like to know if they were going to go on a machete attack at the mall. Is that something we need to worry about now? But let's just go to that real quick.
Elected officials or the members of the general public?
Again, I don't want to continue to reference the publication ban because I know everyone's aware of that. But in this particular case, it would be considered the general population. So the RCMP receives information in a variety of ways, and that could be through the form of tipsters. It can come through other governmental agencies and partners. Once again, the way that this unfolded, I will curtail my comments at this time, but it wasn't as a result of social media, for example. As we discussed a little bit earlier, we were not really aware of these individuals prior to the emergence of this file.
You mentioned they're Canadian citizens. Are they citizens of any other country?
Not that I'm aware of. I know that they're Canadian citizens at this point, but I'm not aware of dual citizenship or anything of that nature.
Why was Toronto targeted? Is it simply because they live here, just geographically spot?
Part of the information that we have within that investigation suggests that Toronto would have been a target. As you know, they were charged with having particular weapons. In other words, we're pretty confident how close they were to moving from simply having those tools and then moving on to actioning that threat. And so I couldn't tell you 6 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours. But once again, what I'll say is because of the swift nature of all of law enforcement, our partner agencies on this, we were able to halt that threat. But we believe it was quite, not only I don't want to say imminent as, again, it's within an hour or two, but it was close.
Superintendent, given that you were able to prevent a serious attack, in your words, in that these people were not at all on your radar a month ago, does it make you reassess the handle of intelligence that you have on potential domestic terrorism in the GTA and across the country?
Mm-hmm. Certainly, sir.
As I said, national security is very much a shared responsibility. Primary focus of the RCMP's federal policing program, but shared responsibility amongst intelligence enforcement agencies also. And the national security landscape, the investigations we do, they're becoming more complex, but we remain vigilant as to the other police services, as to the intelligence agencies, and as we'd like the public to be as well, to continue to be able to address these threats.
The information we have is that it wasn't some sort of widespread sort of threat, which again provides us some confidence in saying that we believe that the threat is neutralized. We don't believe that there's something outstanding right now as we sit here. But as far as what or where that plan may have went, naturally, we don't know how it could have grown, but we do know that it was real.
That it is necessary to treat terrorism as serious, but to treat it as a criminal act. This is not based on individual communities or anything like that.
That's good.
It's individuals.
I think that's good.
Yeah, Sheila, at the very beginning of those clips, did that RCMP officer say there's a publication ban?
Yeah, I think he did.
And the reason would be?
I don't know. We wouldn't want to find out that these were one of Justin Trudeau's Syrian refugees, maybe. I don't know. You can only speculate. Sometimes the publication ban is asked for by the defendants, although I'm not sure if that would be the case here. That is the case in Coots, by the way. But maybe it's just because they could still be investigating. Now they want us to believe that this is just a lone wolf isolated terror cell of 2 people, but who knows? There's a lot of these lone wolves out there, aren't there?